Today's video, we're exploring one of my favorite practical yet mind-blowing chapters in Peter Attia's book, Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity, Chapter 13, The Gospel of Stability. You can think of longevity as diet, exercise, or medical testing, but Attia wants you to go one level deeper. He wants you to reconsider how you move, how your body handles load, fatigue, and time. Because if your body isn't stable, if you can't control it, no amount of heart health or clear arteries will save you from a fall, a torn muscle, or a joint injury that robs you of freedom in your later years. It's time to relearn how to move, not for aesthetics or strength alone, but to protect your independence, avoid injury, and extend your health span, the years of life free from disability or dependence. Why stability matters. Attia makes one thing very clear. Stability is not about being able to stand still. It's about how well your body can control force during movement. And this kind of control becomes more and more critical as we age. Here's one stat to keep in mind. The CDC says 1 in 4 adults over 65 fall every year. Those falls result in over 3 million trips to the ER annually. Once you break your hip or damage your spine, a downward spiral of immobility and muscle atrophy, hospital visits, and even premature death can set in. A lot of times we think mobility and we think movement is everything, Attia says, but you can be extremely mobile and very unstable. You may have the range of motion to be mobile, but if you're unable to control that motion, then you're at risk of tumbling forward or falling over. Think of your suspension system in a car, he says. It's not very glamorous, but without it, you're not going to have a very good performance and not very reliable in the long run. Defining stability. Okay, but what does Attia mean by stability? He says it is the unconscious ability to absorb, slow down, or arrest force. I know, that sounds like a mouthful, but in practice it means this. If you slip on ice, your body has the ability to stop you from falling. Or if you lift a heavy box awkwardly, your spine and hips work together to protect you. This isn't about big muscles. It's about small stabilizers firing in perfect coordination with the larger ones. Think of a gymnast doing a slow, controlled ring dip. Not just strength, but neuromuscular mastery. Stability lives in the core, the feet, the breath, and the brain. And according to Attia, it deteriorates fast when we stop challenging it. So, if you want to walk confidently into your 80s and 90s, you need to start training your stability now, no matter your age. Stability is trainable. The good news, stability can be trained, and relatively quickly. Attia spends about an hour twice a week on stability-specific exercises, plus 10 to 15 minutes daily. That's it, and the results are long-lasting and measurable. He points out that many people ignore stability until they get injured, but if you wait until you tear a rotator cuff or slip a disc, you're already behind. He compares it to brushing your teeth. You don't wait until you get a cavity. You brush daily to avoid one. Likewise, stability training should be proactive, not reactive. You don't need fancy equipment or gym access. You need commitment, consistency, and a bit of humility. Because rebuilding movement patterns means unlearning bad habits, starting with basics, like breathing and foot control. Breath as foundation. Let's begin with the most surprising and foundational aspect of stability, breathing. Yes, breathing. Attia leans heavily on techniques from DNS, Dynamic Neuromuscular Stabilization, developed in Prague. He teaches that proper breathing creates intra-abdominal pressure, stabilizing the spine and core before any movement occurs. Here's one simple breathing drill he practices. Lie on your back with knees elevated. Inhale through the nose, feeling the ribcage and belly expand, 360 degrees, not just into the chest. Then exhale through pursed lips, forcing all the air out. Pause briefly before the next inhale. Sounds basic, but this reinforces deep core engagement, connects breath to movement, and re-educates the nervous system. In fact, many people with chronic back pain have dysfunctional breathing patterns and weak diaphragms. So, restoring breath is the first step in restoring movement. Feet and balance. Next, Attia focuses on the feet, the foundation of all upright movement. Years of wearing supportive shoes, sitting, and lack of movement can atrophy the feet and dull proprioception. He recommends starting with toe yoga, lifting just the big toe while keeping the others down, and vice versa. This reconnects the brain to the feet. Then he moves to balance drills like single leg stands with eyes closed. The goal: stand for 10 seconds without falling. He cites studies showing that single leg balance in middle age predicts longevity. Why? Because good balance reflects strong neural connections, core activation, and lower body control. All of these protect us from falls, twists, and overuse injuries. Spine and controlled articulation. From the feet, we move to the spine. Attia emphasizes segmental spinal control, being able to flex, extend, and rotate the spine one vertebra at a time. He practices a modified cat-cow drill. Instead of moving the whole spine at once, you try to move one spinal segment at a time, starting from the tailbone and progressing up. This retrains motor control and builds spinal awareness. Over time, this prevents the common issue of moving from the wrong place, like flexing the lower back instead of the hips. And that's often how people herniate discs or strain their necks during everyday tasks. Shoulder upper body stability. Stability training isn't just about the core and lower body. Attia gives equal attention to scapular control. Why? Because strong shoulders require stable shoulder blades. He incorporates scapular controlled articular rotations, or scapular cars, into his routine. These slow, circular movements keep the scapulae healthy and mobile. They reduce impingement, improve posture, and prepare the upper body for pressing, pulling, or overhead work. Many rotator cuff injuries are preventable, Attia argues, if we restore scapular mobility and synchronize it with arm movement. Again, it's about quality of motion, not brute strength. Hip hinging and lower body mechanics. One of the most critical movements we lose with age is the hip hinge. Many people bend at the spine instead of the hips, putting tremendous stress on the lower back. Attia teaches step-up drills to retrain proper hinge mechanics. Start with a low box, slowly step up, focusing on driving through the front leg all the way till you're on top of the box. On the descent back down to the floor, take 3 seconds to control the movement. This builds strength, control, and joint alignment. Eventually, you can add light weights, but the point isn't intensity, it's form. Mastering the hip hinge protects your back, preserves mobility, and helps with everything from lifting groceries to squatting down to play with grandkids. Stability in action. Case example. Perhaps the most powerful example showing how regaining stability can have a drastic positive impact on one's quality of life is the complete transformation we see with Barry. In Chapter 13, we get to see how an 81-year-old man who had spent the last 50 years of his life doing essentially zero fitness changed from being an unhealthy and almost crippled version of himself into a functioning member of society again. Barry wasn't prescribed a bunch of strength or endurance training either. No, they had Barry focus entirely on rebuilding his foundational stability through Attia's stability program. This program consisted of breath control, foot mechanics, spinal articulation, scapular mobility, and hip hinging. Through being consistent with these small, precise drills, Barry regained the ability to rise from a seated position without pain, walk with confidence, and engage in daily life without fear of getting injured again. This wasn't due to some miracle cure drug. This was the result of systematically retraining his body to stabilize itself. Barry is just one example of how increasing one's stability late in life can have profound impacts on your health span and lifespan. One now famous drill that was utilized by Barry has aptly been named the Get Up Barry workout. You start out by getting seated in this position on the ground. Now throw your weight backwards, and as you roll onto your back, allow your legs to come up in the air. Now, as your weight and momentum starts to roll forwards, drop one foot onto the floor and place your other foot under your butt as it comes off the ground. Now, just allow your momentum to keep carrying your body forwards and not upwards, as you can now place your other foot on the ground in the full upright and standing position. That's it. Super simple, and anyone of any age should be able to accomplish this simple yet extremely useful movement. Key takeaways. Let's review the core ideas from this chapter. Stability is not optional. It's essential to safe, long-term movement. It's trainable with just 1 to 2 hours per week. It starts with breathing, builds from the feet up, and integrates the whole body. It prevents injury, promotes longevity, and supports all other training goals. Attia calls this the gospel because he sees it as central to human function and as something sorely missing for most training programs today. From stability to lifelong movement. Ultimately, this chapter reframes exercise. This isn't about looking ripped. It's about becoming resilient. Stability makes us anti-fragile, less prone to slips, clumsy twists, or even the usual ravages of time. Runners, lifters, walkers, or anyone who wants to play with their grandkids, this chapter has the tools to help you move better, longer. As Attia says, our goal is to move freely and confidently in our 70s and 80s and into our 90s. Discussion and reflection. Before we go, one more question. Which areas are you struggling with today? Balance, mobility, pain? Which of Attia's drills, the breathing, toe yoga, spinal control, among others, is your best entry point into stability training? On a larger scale, how could a stability routine now change your life in 10, 20, or 30 years? Closing and resources. To wrap up, Chapter 13 reminds us that movement is a skill, and like any skill, it can be improved at any age. Stability is the quiet superpower that makes everything else work better. If you're interested in starting, Attia has a video with demos on his website. You can also explore DNS, PRI, and programs from functional movement experts. Thank you all for listening. I'm happy to take questions or hear your thoughts.